else, for video response to my series on substance dualism, he questions and focuses his discussion around the criteria of theory acceptance that I use in my inductive argument, namely basicality, naturalness, and epistemic virtue. In said video response, Adam asks 5 questions regarding these criteria in the relation to my inductive argument, which was, as a reminder, given the 3 criteria of theory acceptance, basicality, naturalness, and epistemic virtue, and the nature of rival hypotheses, human consciousness is best explained by substance dualism. So here it goes. I'd like to go through his 5 questions. Question 1. Why are basicality and naturalness good criteria for theory acceptance? First, you remember that by basicality I meant a criteria which determines whether a theory needs to provide an explanation or a basic description of some phenomena. In the presence of rival theories, an explanation is in order, whereas in the absence of rival theories, a description can be appropriate. Thus, in light of the 3 rival theories on human consciousness, each theory needs to provide an explanation of human consciousness. So why is this a good criterion? I would start to answer this question by pointing out that some phenomena are ontologically basic to certain theories, wherein they do not need explanations if there are no competing theories. For example, attempts to explain uniform inertial motion are disallowed in Newtonian mechanics because such motion is ontologically basic on this view. But an Aristotelian had to explain how or why a particular body exhibited uniform inertial motion. Thus, what is basic to one theory may be derivative in another. So the usefulness of this criterion exhibits itself by disallowing mere descriptions of entities, such as labeling the mental states as supervenient or emergent, as I argued in my substance dualism series, when there are rival hypotheses present, if the entity is not basic to any theories, and I'll talk about that in a second. So instead of descriptions, we need explanations in the presence of rival theories. Second, you remember that by naturalness I roughly meant some entity is natural for a theory when said entity is a central core entity of said theory, or the entity bears a relevant similarity to central and core entities in that theory. So for example, quarks are natural to physicalism because quarks are physical entities which are core entities of physicalism. So why is this second criteria a good criterion? This criteria is a good one when sifting theories, as it eliminates the temptation of proffering an ad hoc argument. Generally, given that worldviews typically have 1, an epistemic attitude of what counts as knowledge, 2, an ideological account of how entities came into existence, and 3, general ontologies, which allows for entities that bear relevant similarities to other entities in that worldview ontology, it goes without saying that the types of entities that are proffered, along with the sorts of properties they possess and the relations they enter, should be at home with other entities in that theory, and in this sense be natural to that theory. So for example, given the evidence of the Cambrian explosion and 2 rival hypotheses of punctuated equilibrium and neo-Darwinism, the fossil record would be more natural to punctuated equilibrium than neo-Darwinism. Now I don't know if that's a really good argument, as evolution isn't my huge thing in my knowledge. I will be studying that further, but I hope you see my point. So concisely, the issue of naturalness is relevant to the theory assessment between rivals because it provides a criterion for advocates of a theory to claim that their rivals have begged the question against them or adjusted their theory in an ad hoc way. Question 2. Can you give an example where basicality and naturalness have been used other than this argument for substance dualism? I'm not sure if these criteria have been used explicitly as I've defined them and attributed to theories in the way that I did in my dualism series, but there are a few examples that I can think of. The first would be what I've already mentioned between Newtonian mechanics and Aristotelian, given inertial motion for basicality. Naturalness wouldn't fit that description, as inertial motion is natural to both these theories. An example of the criteria of naturalness could be the evidence of evolved primates given neo-Darwinism and progressive creationism. While I don't think evolution is unnatural to Christianity in the logical sense, some people do argue that given that humans have evolved, and this is a fact, that is unnatural to creation accounts. So again, I'm not familiar with explicit definitions or applications of the criteria as I define them, but I do think we use these criteria often and well. Question 3. What facts are explained by substance dualism? While I think that I could come up with several more facts than I have right now, currently I can think of at least 3 facts that substance dualism explains. 1. The enduring I through change, which is arguable. 2. The existence of mental entities. And 3. The incorrigible sensations of first-person perspective. Arguably, we could go on to state that substance dualism establishes a particular metaphysic that is more accurate than physicalism, etc., but I'm not going to do that here. So I hope this is what you were looking for, Adam. At least this is what I can come up with off the top of my head. So if that's not what you were asking, please let me know. 4. How can substance dualism be a better explanation given that invoking basicality revokes its status as an explanation? I think this question is based off a misunderstanding. Invoking basicality does not revoke substance dualism as an explanation. What invoking basicality does is two things. First, since there are rival hypotheses present here, we must strive for an explanation and not a description of mental phenomena. And 2, while mental entities themselves are basic given substance dualism, we can still strive for an explanation given theism, which houses substance dualism, or it can. The appearance of finite consciousness requires explanation, and theism may employ the explanatory resources of its ontology for that explanation, but consciousness per se is ontologically basic, given substance dualism. So in other words, even though one might not find physicalism or substance dualism or epiphenomenalism compelling, they still are required to present explanations since there are rivals present, and hopefully that helps. Question 5, why is substance dualism better than I don't know? I have two closing thoughts on this. First, I think substance dualism is better because it offers persuasive answers to the inherent quality of human persons. Substance dualism explains the quality and existence of mental states and events, and does so that adheres to the criteria of theory acceptance that have been aforementioned. Second, it would be silly for me to state the agnostic position is unjustifiable, as both you and I know that one can say this for almost all propositions justifiably, so I wouldn't conclude anything different for this topic. For example, given the evidence, one can be agnostic that one's wife really loves him, or that God exists, or one can be agnostic towards the argument from divine hiddenness, and do so justifiably. However, the question I would raise is this: is the one who is stating "I don't know" to this aforementioned discussion doing so because he is not persuaded by the positions, or because he is willfully suspending judgment despite the evidences? The intention behind the agnosticism here is very important. So basically, I find the information and arguments to favor dualism over an agnostic position, but that's just me and several others. So concisely, if we were to assume our options to be telemantros, aka substance dualism, or I don't know, both can be justified. Thanks for your video response, Adam. I wish you well. Peace.